Yuji Itadori, a high school student, a normal one at that, but he had incredible athleticism. A boy that had a dying grandfather and many others around him that were pretty familiar with who he was. Itadori was extremely talented, but he never really wanted to put that talents to use in terms of athletics and other things like that. Wasn't his thing. But oh my god, how his world would spin when one day he would use and find this odd looking finger. His friends would be put into danger and he would be forced into this world of curses without a second thought. Yuji Itadori was at his high school and he would always prefer being in his occult club. But soon after, when he was doing all of this, it seemed that this occult club was falling apart. The people at the school were saying that it's not technically a club and that they're not doing research and that it wasn't going actually to the point. But even with all that going on, one of his friends explains that that's not the case, that these experiences that that's happening at this school, at their field, is actually due to curses. And this is blown off immediately, calling it that it was all because of ticks. Yuji, during that day, he left to see his dying grandfather, but when he called in, just as usual, his grandfather doesn't want to be seen by him. And he's not sure why, but he keeps that smile on his face and he hopes for the best. But finally, with pushback, Yuji Itadori sees his grandfather and they have a genuine conversation, or at least as genuine as it could be. And he tells Itadori to try and save anyone he can, even if it's one person, even if it's a couple people. He's talented and he should try his best to save anybody he possibly can in his life. But as this occurs, his grandfather turns over and the heart monitor begins to flatline. Yuji's grandfather has just passed away. He basically doesn't even have time to mourn this yet. Standing at the front desk and talking to the nurse that helped him so much, someone walks in, tracking down Yuji, and his name is Megumi. He explains that he senses something, or sensed the finger's energy from him, and Yuji says that of course he took this little box, but I mean, he doesn't even have it anymore. He throws it to him, and he looks to see that the seal is no longer there, or obviously the finger is no longer there. And he says, where could it be? And he says that his friends probably currently have it and they're at the school. Megumi says that this is a serious problem, so they begin running, trying to get to the school. But when they make it, Megumi sees that the curse has already appeared. Tons and tons of cursed aura, it seems to be revolving around the school. He tells Yuji to stay there and he runs in to fight against the monsters. Yuji, while on the outside of the building, questions what he should do, questions if he should go in as well, especially because he has the power. He sees all this stuff going on and he realizes his grandfather's last words and decides to join him. As Megumi is overwhelmed by the curse, Yuji is able to break through the window to save the friends. His friends that he necessarily put in danger without knowing, in fact. They fight the curse off, luckily, but things go from bad to even worse. The fight continues on and the curse gets the better of Megumi, and it seems like Megumi is going to die, or at least risk his life to die. And that's when Yuji decides to do something very outlandish. Very outlandish. The finger that this monster wants to swallow is going to make him excessively more powerful. Yuji hears that playing over and over in his head, and all he has to do is eat it. So he decides. He eats it and immediately destroys the curse with ease. But he's someone else now. He's possessed by another curse, by someone extremely powerful by the name of Sukuna. Sukuna stands on the roof looking over, saying that it's beautiful. So many women, children, but as he says this, he's cut off, and Yuji was able to suppress him. But as he does this, he looks right in front of him. he sees something odd, a flash of green, and a bunch of statistical categories show up in front of him. What the heck is that? And Megumi asks what just happened and what is he talking about, and he prepares to exercise him, but Yuji says that, well, he's good, that he suppressed Sukuna and that there's nothing to really fear about. Yuji continues to try and convince Megumi of this, that he's completely under control, but Megumi is so scared at this point. He's not thinking of, well, if Sukuna is truly suppressed, can I really take that risk if he actually is? But luckily, Satoru Gojo shows up. Megumi's teacher, hearing about Sukuna's finger, finally arrives and learns that, well, Yuji ate the finger. And Gojo says that he should give Sukuna control for a brief period, and he wants to fight him. And he wants to just test his power out, and it should be all fine and dandy anyways. And Yuji says that asks if that's really a good idea, and Gojo says it's fine. So he enters into Sukuna's form, and Sukuna basically proceeds to get his ass beat. It's really that simple. He gets beat down pretty bad, and then after 10 seconds, Yuji gains control once again. But right after this, he looks at his statistical categories, and it seems like he's gotten a debuff of 25%, and he's kind of confused by this, but sees that he has some attribute points, and there's various attributes. There's strength, durability, health, speed, various other things, and he's confused to see this. Maybe this has something to do with Sukuna's finger, and he even asks them about this, asking Gojo, but Gojo says that that's just not the case. That's not how that works at all, and they're extremely confused. Itadori thinks to himself that maybe this is a power special to him. Maybe this is some special cursed power or whatever they call it. He's not so sure, but it is a theory. But later on, Gojo does explain to Yuji that the Jujutsu elders want him executed, taking him to a place that is restricted completely, but he says that he's able to suspend his death sentence, explaining that if Yuji can eat all 20 of the fingers, that he can then kill him and Sukuna will be permanently killed along with Yuji. He can either choose that or die now. It's really up to him. Obviously, Yuji, thinking of his grandfather's last dying wish, he thinks that maybe this is the best idea. So, Gojo decides to take Yuji to the Tokyo Metropolitan Magic Technical College, intending to train him there, pending an interview with the principal. Obviously, this is the school for the sorcerers, and more or less this goes practically the same. And he claims that his grandfather's dying wish was the reason why he wants to be a sorcerer, but the principal says that that's not, well, good enough. He needs to do more, needs to be more, needs to wish for more. The reason for him being here needs to be bigger than just that. And Yuji eventually says that he wishes to live without the regret of not stopping Sukuna. He doesn't want that. He wants to live, choose the death that he wants to personally have, a proper death, and that he wants to be able to be rid of Sukuna entirely so that he can save as many people as possible. And the principal accepts this, and basically results in him being accepted into the place. Luckily, now with all that said and done, it's now time for Yuji, Megumi, and Gojo to pick up a new first year by the name of Nobara Kukusaki to finally have their three-man team. During this time, when they pick up Nobara and they meet her, introduce each other, and well, frankly, it goes about normal, something flashes on the screen, or the face recognition of Itadori. It seems like the screen that pops up just says mission complete. It seems like gaining a three-man team has given him a boost, or at least attributes in his stats, so now he can implement them. So he decides to put them a couple in strength, a couple in durability, and other stuff like that, and a couple in speed. Not really doing much at all. I mean, it's a simple mission for a couple stats. We're talking maybe 2 to 3 points in each of the stats minimum, or maximum, excuse me. So with all that said and done, they begin speaking about their first mission, and this leads Gojo to take them to an abandoned building near a cemetery, in which they're pretty mad to hear about, because frankly they thought they were going to somewhere nicer and better. But I mean, this is curse hunting. Why would you even think that? But this building is going to be occupied by various curses, and Itadori begins to move throughout the entire building. But Nobara says that she doesn't care and that she would rather go to the very top and that she'll handle it from there. She'll go from the top and he'll come from the bottom, and it will be simple. And this would actually flip on its head pretty quickly. Nobara would be put into a bad situation because of one of the curses, because the curses here are far stronger and smarter than the ones that she's faced before. But luckily, Yuji is going to be able to help her out pretty quickly, smashing through the wall to save Nobara and the boy, smashing basically the curse immediately, but the curse attempts to flee nonetheless. But luckily Nobara is able to finish it off with her straw doll technique, especially with the curse being slightly more injured, frankly because of the fact that Itadori is a decent amount stronger than in normal canon. Not too much stronger, but definitely a little bit stronger. He then gets another mission, a mission complete, saying to defeat a curse in the abandoned building. It seems like his missions as a Jujutsu sorcerer is lining up pretty well with, you could call this, obviously, his special upgrading tiles or upgrading stats. It works pretty well. So he again adds a couple points to strength, health, speed, and other things like that, being that we can say it's pretty well rounded, maybe a 3-3-2-2 type of split, nothing too outlandish, but definitely getting there as he goes. Being at a level of maybe you could say 5 or 6 at this point. He then heads out the building, and Gojo tells them that they did a good job, noticing that Nobara is obviously pretty psycho, so that does definitely work out for them. This entire event then convinces Nobara to enroll, obviously, and as a reward for completing the test, Gojo takes them all out to dinner. About a month later, they actually do hear about these 3 sorcerers that were dispatched to exorcise a cursed womb of some sorts and at a detention center in West Tokyo, leaving one of them actually dead. This obviously puts Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara to investigate the appearance of this so-called womb with the assistant director of Jujutsu High, informing Yuji that they believe that the womb could transform into a special grade curse spirit. That's obviously hypothetical though. The trio learns that they have to investigate, not fight, so that's exactly what they do. They realize that they don't want to fight in this situation, they either run or die. The goal is to basically verify if there's any survivors and verify if there's actually people that are dead, and they want to keep track of the people that are killed in this scenario, in which they walk in as, you could say, a barrier is created around the area to make sure nobody can get in or out, or mostly get in. But during this time, something seems odd. Immediately they can tell that in the juvenile center, everything seems to be very different. Now changed completely, they actually begin to see a lot of terrifying things. It seems to be an infinite chaotic wasteland that the inmates are practically all just brutally murdered. And this does lead to obviously Megumi and Yuji kind of having an argument, basically talking about bringing the dead bodies to show their families, to make them have some closure. But Megumi disagrees, and he says that's a horrible idea, and he then sees something, or they both see something. Nobara, currently not here, sent to investigate some other place, well, they see a demon dog dead, murdered. Megumi is right next to the special grade, and so is Yuji as well. They are in complete shock, not knowing what to do, and the weapon that Yuji had, he tries to slice it at the special grade, but it's instantly torn off. He is bloodied by this cursed spirit badly, and he plans to unleash Sukuna once Megumi and Nobara have found the exit. And initially, Megumi is against this idea, but then runs away. Luckily, they were able to escape, and after Yuji getting absolutely beat senseless, he more or less activates Sukuna, in which Sukuna is mad about this, thinking that maybe he can go down and just kill the rest of those people or whatever, and that he can find them and then kill them. And he tries to conversate with the special grade, but they're obvious he's basically a wild animal. And Sukuna is frustrated by this, trying to basically convince this special grade, but it leads him to basically annihilating him, pinning him up against the wall, taking off multiple limbs, and slicing him into pieces. Frankly, Sukuna is far out of range of this special grade, but not only on top of that, he actually is so far above him because of a boost that he's getting from his stat leveling system. It seems that Yuji has come up with something. It's very interesting, actually. It seems that your little stat leveling thingy, or whatever you want to call it, Mr. Yuji Itadori, it seems to be benefiting me more than benefiting you. Actually, something very, very interesting. Maybe I should keep you around for a little longer. Or maybe not. Sukuna basically kills the special grade, pinning him against the wall, like I said, and he heads out to see Megumi. Once he obviously meets and sees Megumi, he begins to chastise him for running away, and now the fight between Sukuna and Megumi begins. But Fushiguro, or Megumi Fushiguro, cannot do a thing. And actually, to put them on a ticking time bomb and make sure Yuji doesn't, you could say, switch back, he pulls out his own heart, throwing it to the side, believing that Yuji wouldn't be so reckless to try and take over while they, have a little battle. Because if he does, he'll die a very, very bad death. But honestly, this fight goes exactly the same. Megumi even admits that he was selfish to save Yuji, that he wanted him to be alive, and that, he's being overpowered by a wide margin. Megumi is trying his best and even is about to pull out anything he possibly can to maybe even the score, maybe even everything else. But before he can, Yuji emerges. And he smiles, telling him not to worry and not to feel bad. But quickly, he dies from blood loss. And that's when they begin mourning Yuji Itadori. But what they don't understand and what they don't know is that the vessel for Sukuna is not dead, at least not yet. Yuji wakes up in Sukuna's domain, and they begin to negotiate more and more about where they should be going and if he'll let him go into a pact. That Sukuna basically wants him to make a deal. Sukuna tricks Yuji into making a deal with him that will basically let him take over at any time without killing or destruction. But this idea is erased in Yuji's memory. But Yuji awakens on the table and reunites with Gojo. And finally, true training is going to begin. Yuji has more passion now, more want to get stronger. He wants to master this curse power that he actually saw for a split second when he was fighting the special grade, but also his stat leveling system. He wants to get stronger based on that as well. He wants to make sure that nobody else can die at the hands of him and that he doesn't even need to use Sukuna ever again. And he is asked by Gojo if Sukuna has made a deal, maybe a pact of some sorts, but obviously Yuji doesn't know. He says that he has no clue if any of that even happened, and he doesn't remember anything. He remembers it being maybe brought up, but nothing like specific by any means. And that was part of obviously the plan, and unluckily enough, they're not going to know exactly how that works. This then leads to obviously the training he does while watching movies, which a little break the third wall or fourth wall. That's kind of funny. I like the idea of watching movies with that cursed doll. That's actually really funny. But he continues that training, and he does see some growth not only in his curse powers, but also his powers in general. His stat leveling system powers actually continuously grows and grows and grows, and it seems like he's actually getting stronger based on that and based on what he's doing. So his strength, his durability, his speed, his health, it's all going up in his stat leveling system, in which he does explain to Gojo the best he possibly can in depth. But Gojo says that he doesn't really understand it, and it might be some sort of cursed magic that he's able to use, or it could be anything really, or it might have something to do with eating Sukuna's finger, and that since he's a perfect vessel, it reacted in this way. But nobody necessarily knows how exactly it's going to work. But with all that said, Gojo leaves him to just train on his own. That's until Gojo finds something that could be very useful for him to see. So, during the fight with a very strong cursed spirit, he brings, obviously, Yuji there to see it, showing him various techniques that a obviously cursed spirit can use, and on top of that, any techniques that Gojo can use. This is very important information that will definitely be useful later on, but frankly at the moment isn't necessarily useful at all. Unfortunately though, well, the cursed spirit eventually is able to escape. That's, well, at the hands of someone else. Someone else is able to help him leave, and Gojo, unfortunately, saving Yuji from being actually obliterated into these spikes, allows them to leave as well. During this time, Nobara and Megumi were actually training for the upcoming exchange event, but unfortunately Yuji would not be a part of that training, at least for now. Currently, Yuji is actually being approached by a potential investigation. Some high schoolers were found completely disfigured and killed. 3 high schoolers just completely destroyed at a theater, and is approached by a teenage boy. So with this film in hand and knowing what occurred, Yuji, and actually not Gojo, someone that would quote-unquote replace him, a former or ex-salaryman, a first-grade Jujutsu sorcerer by the name of Nanami, Kento, would actually storm onto the scene of the crime, in which Yuji is able to actually see the curse remnants pretty easily actually. This time around, his stats are actually helping him increase and develop a lot quicker, and Kento is slightly impressed by this. He says that it is good that he is seeing such, you could call growth, but says that he needs to grow at a little bit faster rate, especially with the already advantage that he has. And Yuji remarks that it doesn't seem like he can compliment people very well, and he shakes his head. Kento says that there's no reason to compliment someone on something that should be already the case. He only goes based off of facts, and that's it. But while they're heading out to check out all of these, well, remnants, they're actually attacked, or at least a fight ensues, where Yuji reveals a curse technique and he uses it on this well, monster of some sorts, amplifying his power of his punches. Being a slight bit stronger, it actually does affect the monster a little bit more than it would have initially. But Kento does realize something. Realizes that one of the monsters that they're fighting actually has a watch on. Realizing that these are humans. And obviously, this is a teaching lesson for Yuji. Explaining to Yuji that these basically are humans, quote unquote, but they don't want to live like this. So they end up killing him, and this is the first time Yuji actually kills a quote unquote human. He doesn't know how to feel about this. He's horrified at this fact, but he can't really sweat on it. And so does Kento, explains the same thing as well, and begins to go on a deep dive analysis to try to figure some things out. He figures some things out about the direction or where this person is, and he finds the area, sending more or less Yuji and the assistant director more or less on a wild goose chase. And the assistant director knows this already, but obviously Kento doesn't want to put Yuji into harm's way already for no apparent reason, especially knowing that this could possibly be a trap. The next goal though for Yuji is to actually talk with someone that was on the scene that day by the name of Junpei. He actually finds Junpei talking with one of his teachers, and Junpei wants to kill this teacher for the way he's acting, and he's about to do so, but a low-grade curse actually interrupts them, and Yuji more or less heads the teacher off to a different direction and comes all the way back around the block to talk to Junpei and basically asks to walk him home. So they begin conversating, and frankly Yuji doesn't necessarily want to talk about this without the assistant director here, but he decides that since he's not answering, that he'll just question him himself. He begins asking about the incident, about if he did it, and about some other things if he saw anything, and he explains that he really didn't see much, but he did see a person, some person that spoke with him, and Yuji and him entirely is just glowing of this warming and welcoming, and Junpei seems to be very welcoming of Yuji as well, even when Junpei's mother comes across and sees them both and invites them to dinner. They begin to all talk and chat about various different things, but something very frightening happens to Itadori, something that he wasn't expecting. It's a heads up with his mission request system, and it basically says mission complete. Made Junpei your friend, which is good and all, and that's what he's happy about, but it says that there's another upcoming mission, and that mission is detected and has a title that is called Junpei. Your new friend is in danger. Itadori is shocked to hear this, but he doesn't know what that even means. Why would that he be in danger? What's gonna happen? And unluckily enough, he's forced to, leave. He has to head off, but he says that he'll talk to Junpei very soon as well, and they even exchange numbers. And he says that he'll definitely be speaking with him in the near future. What Itadori didn't know though is leaving was a very bad idea. Junpei's mother was killed by a cursed spirit that was hunting down one of Sukuna's fingers. But not only that, this forced Junpei into a different mindset, a way different mindset. Mahito convinces Junpei that one of his bullies was the culprit, and that he needs to go down to that school and handle business. So he does just that. He heads down there and begins to wreak havoc, as a barrier begins to more or less enclose the entirety of the school. Everybody begins to pass out, one after another, as Junpei begins to approach the person that he believes is responsible for doing such a thing, and begins to kill him. And just in time though, Yuji is able to confront him, telling him that this isn't the way. He can't go around killing people, but Junpei is not listening. Junpei is no longer there at all, and he begins fighting Itadori, fighting him what it feels like to the death. But during this entire time, Junpei continues to say that he needs to just back off. Sorcerer, back off now. But luckily, with all the boosts in strength, he's able to keep up relatively well without really much trouble, and he's kind of just making sure that Junpei can just wear himself out. But unluckily enough, this would go very, very off the rails when someone shows up. Mahito shows up right behind Junpei and begins to talk to Yuji. Begins to say all this meaningless stuff and puts his hand on the back of Junpei and begins to change and disfigure and turn Junpei into a disfigured creature. Yuji begins to panic. All he wants is for his friend to be okay. That's all he wants right now. He tries his best to maybe conjure up anything, a curse magic, something that can save his friend, but nothing works. Yuji even asks Sukuna. This is all he can think about. Asks Sukuna to heal Junpei, and he doesn't care. He'll give everything. He'll give him full control. Just save Junpei. But as he says this, Sukuna begins to laugh at him. You really think I'm gonna do that? You got another thing coming. And Yuji can't even think now. He just sees Junpei on the ground. He begs Yuji to help him before he dies. And he dies right in front of him. And Mahito just says that, well, it seems like he was overwhelmed by the, you could say the disfigurement. And Yuji is furious, pissed to the point he's not even thinking, attacking Mahito's body, but at the same time attacking his soul, causing the cursed spirit to bleed, and Mahito is shocked to see this. And Mahito feels that the power gap is far beyond Yuji's even control, but that's not the case. Yuji is keeping up, and it's blatantly obvious that he's keeping up. Mahito realizes that he's going to have to try and play a little dirty, so he impales Yuji in multiple spots, but luckily Yuji is still able to push forward and lunge himself, pulling out the holes and the spikes that are through him, anything that is being impaled within him. His durability is even more than normal because of his stat leveling system, and now he's furious. He just failed a mission, and it comes up on his screen that he failed to save his friend, failed to save him, and now he has another mission to beat down Mahito, and that's all he wants right now. His relief. He wants to beat him at the inch of his life and then tear life away from him itself. But during this fight, Mahito sees an opening and tries to disfigure Yuji. But as he does this, someone isn't very happy. Sukuna, standing on top of his little throne, stares at Mahito. You do not know what you're getting yourself into. So now, I want you to think about it before you do this ever again. This is your one and only chance. If I see you again, I'm going to brutally kill you, and that is a promise. You're just a pawn in this. I hope you realize that, Mahito. Mahito immediately is able to snap out of it, but just as he does, Yuji begins to slam his head over and over and over again. Every time he hits him with his head, it begins to get stronger and stronger, injuring Mahito to a good bit. And that is when Mahito gets thrown to the other side, and Yuji will not be alone anymore. Nanami arrives on the scene and asks Yuji if he's okay, and he says he's fine, that the other people, or there's a lot of people in there, so they cannot be defeated here. And Nanami responds that he's asking if he's fine, and he nods, saying that luckily he got a nice little special skill. He's confused to hear this, and he explains the little system he has, very roughly. Obviously, it takes him about 3 seconds to explain what he's talking about, and he says that he gave himself a nice ability after reaching a certain level, and luckily these holes, they're not going to matter very much. They begin to slowly but surely regenerate, and the way that the skill works is that when he's standing there on his own, not doing anything, then he's able to slowly but surely regenerate. But that only happens when he's not in action. So once he goes back into it, this regeneration will stop. Nanami smiles and says, and asks about the face of Mahito. And he says that he smashed his face in with his forehead. And Nanami says that this may be tough, but if they work together properly, they'll be able to kill this guy and not let him go and not let him leave ever again. Yuji nods. This will be a fight for the ages. Yuji Itadori is in the middle of getting his first taste at what a true battle with someone with insane cursed powers truly is. Nanami and Yuji gang up on Mahito relentlessly, but the only thing is they're unable to leave any permanent marks at all. But there's one thing they do realize. Mahito is doing something to power up his attacks, doing something that they notice slightly. Short pauses, and whenever he does this, he gathers cursed energy. Nanami and Itadori actually see this and realize it pretty quickly, especially with Itadori's increased intelligence from his stat leveling system. Their assault continues. They begin to beat and batter Mahito relatively easily now. They got the rhythm and now they're working perfectly as a team, but on the brink of defeat, Mahito tries something. He tries something that is going to be drastic but could work wonders for him. After Itadori goes for the final blow, using as much strength as he possibly can to kill Mahito, he begins to trap Nanami inside a domain expansion, trapping him in, and Nanami pushes Yuji or Itadori outside of it. But there was no, reason for him to even trap Yuji in, and frankly he didn't want him in anyways. He traps Nanami in and begins to scoff at him. Nanami prepares himself, frankly, to die. Nanami knows that once he's locked in a domain expansion, and with how good his, you could call cursed powers are, it's a wrap. It seems like this is gonna be the end of the road for him. Until he hears a thud, another thud, and another thud, until Yuji Itadori blasts through the top of the domain expansion. Mahito is shocked to see this, and instantly he gets something. Something happens to Mahito, and Sukuna is unhappy to beyond his extent. I told you, don't mess with me. You're messing with my soul, and I told you only had one chance. Now you die. Sukuna begins to basically destroy Mahito's soul, forcing him to drop his domain expansion and leaving horrible wounds to him. Nanami says that they cannot let him escape, so they try their best to keep up and try to finish him off. But unfortunately, they're unable to do so, and Mahito escapes into the sewers, and he is shocked to see this. A large smirk covers Mahito's face, and he's happy to just be alive, and that he'll be coming after Yuji Itadori in the near future once again. But with that all said, we head back to Jujutsu Tech. After with some conversation between Yuji and Gojo, they say that they're finally gonna reveal that Yuji is back on the scene. So when they arrive with Kyoko, or the school Kyoko Tech, the other Jujutsu Kaisen or Jujutsu Sorcerer school. Gojo arrives with a box and begins to hand out gifts, but then says that he has a special gift for his 2 first-year students, in which Yuji comes out of the box, surprising everybody, saying that he's alive. But that doesn't really go very well. Everybody either is too occupied with the gifts that he already has, and frankly, Nobara and also Megumi are just kind of confused. They kind of been mourning Yuji, so it's odd to see him alive once again, and it's definitely going to, you could say, take some time to realize fully. But Yuji eventually is able to talk to everybody. He's able to talk to the first year students, his team, Megumi and Nobara, and also the rest of the second years, explaining everything that happened and that he basically was revived, and that he survived because of Sukuna, but he's not 100% sure how, and he hasn't come back for basically a reason of him getting more control and also him basically working on other missions. He apologizes that he wasn't able to tell them sooner, in which they are able to understand more or less. But they do begin to say that it's going to be kind of hard for them to actually put Yuji into the group. How are they going to set him up just like everybody else? They had a clear-cut plan, so what are they going to do? In which Yuji says that he's not sure either, but he's sure that he can come up with something if given enough time. And they're confused because Yuji is such an airhead. How would he come up with something? But he begins to quickly explain that he's not just an airhead now, and explains this odd leveling system that he has, and he's talked about it in the past, and that his intelligence does feel higher than normal, And Nobara makes a joke at the idea that when you multiply 0 by any number, it's still 0. And Yuji takes offense to that and says that that wasn't very nice. But with some talking, they realize that they don't have that much time in terms of getting into the competition. So they decide on one strategy. They decide to have Yuji as muscle. Yuji is extremely strong, especially with his stat leveling system. He's even stronger than normal, and he will go head to head with someone on the other team by the name of Toto. And he agrees to this. So they learn about what the competition is exactly, that they are going to exercise basically various curses. But what they don't realize is that the Kyoto students are up to something. Or more than just that. An elder has told them that he orders them to kill Yuji. He wants them to kill him and make it seem like an accident. But that won't be as easy as they really believe it to be. Both of the teams are ready to go. The group battle is now amongst them, and they're about to begin. They begin to run off, and Yuji is ready to take on the main threat, or the main threat he feels it to be, and that's Toto. That's Aoi Toto. He knows it's going to be a tough fight, but all he has to do is really stall him. Toto comes basically running in at full speed, and Yuji is there ready to connect a punch with his punch. Toto smiles, and he is ready for an intense brawl. But just as Toto has this in mind, a bunch of his own teammates show up. They begin to attack Yuji, and they seem to have a killing intent. And even Yuji can tell that they're trying to kill him. But immediately, he's right next to one of the boys, one of the people that are on their team, and he puts a hand on his shoulder. This won't be as easy as you believe it to be. I know you think it is, but I promise, my grade, my curse grade, whatever they call me, I might be a low tier sorcerer, but trust me, I'm not that bad. He immediately kicks one of them off of him, and Toto actually hits one of his own teammates to get him off as well. And Toto is shocked to see this, but he smirks. "You seem stronger than I thought. This is gonna be fun." He tells his entire team to buzz off, that this is his fight. And immediately as he says this, the other team, Yuji's team, actually intervenes and separates them entirely. Yuji and Toto now face to face, and Toto says that he's not gonna back down, and Yuji says the exact same thing. Toto goes and basically to punch Yuji extremely hard, hitting him through one of the curses that is around, and Yuji realizes that this man is stronger than he even believed in the first place. This may turn out really bad, but there's no guarantee he'll come out alive, but he's still gonna have fun with this fight. He's bloodied, sitting on a tree, but he slowly gets up and smirks at Toto, saying that he's not done and over with yet, and his wounds begin to slowly regenerate. Now that is something I like to see. I like to see that passion. But I have to ask you something before we continue this fight. I need to know something very important. Yeah? And what is that? What type of woman do you like? What type of woman do I like? What kind of question is that? Shoot, I mean, if you really want me to answer, and you're serious about that question, I would have to say, it has to be a woman who's tall and has a fat ass, just like Jennifer Lawrence. Toto's smile and smirk widens further, and says that they were destined to be best friends, and this combat will be the best he's ever had, ever. They begin to clash, fighting like crazy back and forth. Everything Toto has learned, he begins to teach to Yuji. They have now entered this state of a total bonding. They're like brothers, battle hardened. Battle itself is forcing Yuji to enjoy it more and more. And throughout this time, he's getting level after level. Every quest that says that he needs to learn something from Toto, it's passed. Everything he wants to gain, passed. Every level up, he has tons of attribute points now, and mid-fight, he even stops Toto. 1 second, let me explain something to you, Mr. Toto. I have a special, you could call it a curse power. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's some sorcery. I'm not sure, but it's a leveling system. Toto is intrigued to hear this. A leveling system. Interesting. So like a video game. Yeah, exactly, like a video game. Me and you fighting, I've just gained tons of levels. So if you want me to be even stronger while we're fighting, go ahead, I know what you're gonna say. Put it all into other attributes and we'll continue fighting again, brother. Immediately, Yuji begins to up his strength, up his endurance, up his health, anything that would help him. He has tons of points, making basically his attributes double in size from a range of all 15s to a range of, we're talking 30s, maybe even 40s. Yuji looks at Toto and says that he's gotten twice as strong, and Toto smiles. Let's see it then, brother. Let's continue this battle. Even during this battle, Toto can feel the strength of Itadori, trying to teach him to control his cursed energy, trying to make him even stronger. He says that he wants his brother to be even stronger than him. That once he gets stronger than him, they could go out together, kill all the curses. It will be so easy for them. Their connection is flawless. And Itadori is buying into this. He's actually excited. He's growing at such a rapid rate. This is the best possible thing that could have ever happened to him. His strength has doubled. At this point, maybe even has tripled. Itadori is so strong, but they're so caught up in their fight, they barely realize what's occurring, and they sense something. It seems that special grades have entered the battlefield, and it seems like some people that they know need their help. So immediately Itadori and Toto get ready to actually assist the second years and also Megumi. They begin to basically close the distance on that area, seeing that Toto's team and also Itadori's team have joined forces to try and defeat these cursed spirits, but they have no chance. They fist bump and basically say that the brothers will handle this. So immediately, they are sensed and they come towering from the top of the sky, slamming their fists into Hanami, the cursed spirit that has been basically tormenting these other people and basically was trying to strangle Maki to death and hurting everybody around them. Panda shows up and says that he'll take all the people that are hurt, and Yuji looks at Megumi and says to not worry, that he will handle it with his brother. They both line up, and Toto stands off to the side and says he wants to see something first. He wants to see something from Yuji. Use the technique that he saw that was possible. Use Black Flash, a technique that when unleashed will completely destroy his opponent. And Yuji wipes his hands off and looks at the curse grade. Hanami is shocked to see this, seeing that this boy is even stronger, far stronger than what was said initially. Hanami was told that Yuji needed help against Mahito, but right now, he could arguably go head to head with Mahito by himself. Maybe even defeat him. Hanami is shocked to see this but isn't going to back down. But Yuji goes charging in at full speed. Black Flash! Immediately landing the Black Flash, tearing half of the body of Hanami straight off. He yells for his brother and immediately he gets pile-drived into the ground. And they both say that together they can exorcise this curse and they'll do it right now. Their assault continues on without a blink. Hanami can't even keep up, trying to maintain themselves, immediately pulling out Toto's secret technique, the Boogie Woogie. Keeping up, is out of the question. This is practically impossible. Their speed is equal, their timing is perfect, and the wounds can continue to grow. Hanami is trying to basically recover, trying to make sure that she's okay or can survive. But it doesn't matter to them. They're making sure that Hanami is not getting out of here alive. At a last-ditch effort, tries to unleash her own domain expansion, but that is practically impossible with 2 people on you at full speed. And to make matters worse, her body is deteriorating. It seems like Yuji is having such an impactful punch. No. Is this something that Yuji has? Yuji has leveled up and earned a new special skill, and he thought it would be perfect for the battle ahead. Decay itself. He lands a punch, and the more he does, the more the curse will start decaying. So, just to make matters worse, Hanami is decaying, can't even get up a domain expansion, and as she looks up, she sees that Gojo is now dispelling the veil over the battlefield. Immediately, she tries to escape, and when she does, Gojo blasts an insane wave of giant purple cursed energy at a retreating Hanami. And this time, Hanami is completely exorcised. There's no doubt that she was not able to escape. She was vaporized. She might have gotten through that portal, but her whole body was gone in an instant. The body that was decaying was just finished off by Gojo. And Gojo looks down and screams that his eyes hurt, or at least that he used too much power, but that's beyond the point. It doesn't matter anymore. The battle is over, but they are missing something. They find out that Mahito found all the fingers, or at least Sukuna's fingers, that were at Jujutsu Tech. But with a cursed spirit now dead, one of the strongest cursed spirits they've seen in a while, it's beneficial nonetheless for the sorcerers. Now knowing that Yuji and Toto can definitely take them out together, and that Yuji is a force to be reckoned with. But the only problem the others are having, the people that want him dead, they know now that he has Toto on his side with Gojo, it doesn't really matter. There is no killing off Yuji Itadori. He's here to stay for the long run. With the group battle practically sacrificed, can't really do anything about that, they actually decide to regroup and start another thing, in which they do a baseball game against each other, in which Jujutsu High actually wins, which is all cool and all, but that's neither here nor there. A baseball game is not very important, and you could say that Yuji probably hit the baseball a little bit further than normal, but that's beyond the point. Now let's get into the real nitty gritty. After that is all said and done, Tokyo's Jujutsu High first years, Megami, Nobara, and Yuji, are sent to investigate the mysterious deaths that are connected to the former's alma mater, or at least the alma mater of Megami. And when they arrive, they're actually greeted by various people that are terrified of Megami, and they do explain all this stuff about how Megami basically beat up a ton of people. Megumi then learns of his connection to what's going on, his connection to the cursed spirits that basically put his sister under, and that when she wakes up, she will be a target. He tries his best to get Yuji and Nobara out of this situation, but obviously they have his back. They're not gonna just let him go in on alone, so when they scheme and he goes out for the night to basically handle it on his own, Yuji and Nobara appear right next to him, saying that they weren't gonna just be left behind. It's not that simple. So when they arrive, they enter the battlefield, but Megumi is forced to face off against a special grade cursed on his own. With this battle, Well, Megumi is going to have to stretch his limits, push himself beyond. He'll have to remember the words of Gojo, his sensei, encouraging him to release anything he possibly can, his own domain expansion, unlock the power deep within himself, and push himself to the utter limits of his power. Megumi will fight this special grade with his own power, with everything he possibly can. But going back to Yuji, Itadori, he's chasing down one of the curses, and he actually runs into somebody, runs into Nobara, and sees another curse. And this curse begins to freak out. Yuji's confused, and Yuji also hears the other curse that he's been chasing apologize to his brother, saying that he didn't mean to basically lure him over here so he could see his backside. And his brother begins to panic, freaking out, saying that none of them can actually leave now. So he infects both of them with a curse. It seems like this cursed womb is or cursed womb for his brothers. It seems like it's like a decay technique of some sorts that will basically poison them and rot their bodies away in mere minutes. Nobara knows that this is a bad situation, but what's funny is that Yuji is barely even affected. He can still move, and if we're talking about pain, Yuji has the biggest tolerance for pain. He'll push through any pain that is thrown his way and give it back tenfold. Yuji begins his onslaught on the older brother, his onslaught on the brother that is stronger than the two, obviously, and begins to beat him down, saying that if he doesn't release the curse, he'll continue this onslaught and he'll rip his head off himself, beginning to basically overwhelm the curse. And Nobara smirks. Yeah, it's not that simple either. You'll be dead before you even have a chance to release this curse, because you won't be getting out of here alive. She slams her pins or her nails into her arm, and the brother begins to react. She realizes that it might hurt herself, but it damn sure hurts him a lot more. She continues this as Yuji begins to beat him down. Nobara, though, through the pain, begins to walk to the other brother. The brother that Yuji frankly already injured pretty much a good amount, and this forces the curse to choose. Does he watch as his brother dies right in front of him, or does he retract the curse, gain his energy back, and hopefully go head to head with Yuji? Is that even going to be enough strength? Will it even be enough for him to keep up? As he begins to think about this, he feels his body. It's giving out. Why does it feel like he looks to see his body is turning this blackish color, and Yuji just smirks at him. My decay is coming into effect now. You're not the only one with that effect, you idiots. He continues his onslaught, and the brother is forced to release the curse, but this immediately gives Nobara the chance to just destroy the other brother. And he wasn't even able to help his brother, and he screams in terror. He just watched his other brother die in front of him. How could he let this happen? So he tries his best to get away, but even Yuji is on him like glue, ripping off two of his arms, and even throws his arms to Nobara as he keeps trying to kill him. But Yuji knows that it's over. He smiles. My sympathy goes out to you and your brother. And the other one that is going to lose both you and the other one over there. He jumps off the truck that the curse is on, and Nobara screams with a sadistic smile. Straw doll technique, slamming her nail into the straw doll, killing the curse. He walks over to Nobara and pats her on the shoulder, basically saying that she did a good job. But they both reflect on the fact that those two, they weren't really curses. They were human. And they both nod, and they say that sometimes you have to just make the hard choices. And frankly, killing humans when need be, those are the hard choices as a sorcerer they're gonna need to make. But after that's said and done, they meet up with Megumi to collect, and they eventually collect one of Sukuna's fingers. But actually, when Megumi talks about it, telling Yuji not to eat it, he reaches out to grab it with his hand, but Sukuna tricks them and immediately eats the finger, in which Yuji kind of shrugs, saying that it's not really a big deal. He has the strength to ultimately hold Sukuna where he is, and even if they ate 3 fingers right now, he'd be easily able to hold him. Sukuna appears once again, telling him to not get so cocky, basically showing up on his cheek, basically as a mouth, but Itadori tells him that soon his day will come, and frankly that day will be both of their days. But with all that done, later on they head back to the school, in which they learn of something. They hear that Mei with Aoi or Toto go in to recommend Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, Maki, and Panda as class grade 1 sorcerers. Yuji has taken his next step up, and frankly, with his brother Toto, it seems like there is no limit to the power that Itadori can have. But that power is not going to be shown today. That power is going to be shown in another story.